Hi everyone, it's your favourite non-duality pirate here. I thought I really can't be bothered shaving sometimes, so I was like, I'll just not bother and that'll be easier, less stuff to do. But it turns out that when you have a beard, it actually requires more maintenance than if you don't. So yeah, it didn't work. So we're going to go into a little bit more of the integration, the practical side of this, like how to live a quote unquote awake life in a world where the general idea commonly shared among everyone is that we're all separate in a separate world. Sometimes it can seem really bizarre and absurd how some of the how much is missed when we operate from this assumption, because it omits such an enormous amount of mystery and these incredible how would you say how wondrous this experience is, how absolutely ridiculous this is when you even if you consider it. Like when you look out into space, when you see that we are on this planet, like floating through this void with like trillions and trillions or even higher number of galaxies and planets that are just like floating out there at almost infinite distance from ourselves. That's mad. it's like you can't even put into words how mental that is. Even like that the forms of life on this planet, it gets taken for granted. Like I said about the seagull, when I actually looked at the seagull flying, I was like, I could look at that all day. And you see, like, there's a big pine tree here. This beautiful life form, this incredible mystery, and we appreciate that. We can't help but feel that because people have pets, cats and dogs, and they have such a deep connection to this other species of creature, and it's like part of us recognizes that, part of us feels that, but it's overlooked a lot of the time. But really stopping for a minute and just looking at that, like, I remember we had a cat, and sometimes I would just stop and look, and the cat would look at you, and there's just like a recognition of being there that is so profound and it's so mysterious, and you're both like looking at each other, and it's like, this is incredible. Like, what is this? This is incredible. And the simplicity and just that experience, that recognition of being, that recognition of life recognizing itself, absolutely incredible. And these things are just missed. That's what I was meaning when I made that post on the posts bit of the channel. That you can miss this so easily when you're distracted, because all of the attention is in this internal world. All that happens with the no self thing is that internal world actually stops, or has the ability to stop in its reality, it's not there anymore. So there is thought. A huge amount of the time there is no thought, and when that's not there, this what is here in the absence of that becomes so clear. And what becomes clear about it is mystery and its beauty, and you get the attention gets pulled into that. It gets pulled into that. Or it's just that anyway. So then there's a deep appreciation of being. Reality appreciating itself by default. That default appreciation is what people, I think, describe as love. And it's shared with everything. Every apparent form that comes and goes in experience is that. So then it becomes a great exploration of life, where you just explore the wonder and the mystery of what this is. And it's all the time, every moment is completely novel, is completely unique, is completely new. Like this experience here, let's just say in the looking, will never be this again. You know, even if I turn my head and look back, it's apparently, you know, my mind might remember this is the same image I was looking at, in that it makes it mundane, because it's like, well, it's just there. Well, it's just there again. It's just that same thing. But it's not. It's completely different. It's completely fresh. It's completely brand new. The experience you're having now will never be that again. So, especially when we're sharing our being, and there's a recognition of that with your family, you can take this extends out to everything and everyone, but specifically in the relative aspect, those who you the veil of separation is thinned to an extent. It's more easy for you to feel that connection, and there's a different energetic synchronicity going on there that can be felt with those of you know, like your children, if any of you have kids, or your partner, or your family. You know, it's unique. The way we interact with people, it's all unique, different flavour, the energetic flavours of life, and you know, you can miss that. You can miss all of that. You know, I guess there might be some people that, even though at some deep level they feel that it's obscured, and they just miss it, and the identity stuff gets in the road, and then by the time that person isn't here in that way anymore, there's like a regret, because you're like, I missed this. I missed it. Yeah, I remember when my dad died, and you know, like I talked to his sister, my aunt, and like about when he died, and it was within the week that he died, and I didn't you know, see him all that much towards the end. There were reasons for that, but I was driving up, you know, towards. I was kind of passing the area where he lived, and popped into my head. It just came in. I just got this feeling. I was like, I should go and see him. Something was telling me to go and see him, and I was like, nah, I can't be bothered. It's too much hassle. You know, there were certain things there that were making it difficult for me to go and see him. And then he like died pretty soon after that. And when I realised that, I was like, I should have went with my intuition. Like, I regretted that. And I guess that's valuable, because the lesson I learned in this is that, you know, don't take things for granted. You know, even though my relationship with my dad was really problematic, deeply problematic, there, you know, like I said, I regard him as the greatest spiritual teacher. Even in his death, even after death, the spiritual teaching continued. If that sounds weird, I've explained this before, but it's like, even all of the lessons that came from that relationship all had value. So there's this appreciation there, and it's like I did regret that for sure. So every moment is precious, every moment is a treasure, every moment, and it's always here. The good thing about it is that whenever you decide to appreciate this, it's right there for you. Enlightenment is right here for you. It's just life. Enlightenment is life. I was talking to someone in emails, and he said something like, life is a wild ride, and we said something like, enlightenment is just living life directly. That's it. It's just life. Not living a fake life that's made of thoughts that represents what you're living, your idea of it based on this limited character's point of view, but it's just life. There was a point to this video. I was going to answer a question. You know, it's weird, me and my wife watched, I'm going to have to keep checking the time all the time. Me and my wife watched my self-inquiry video that I posted. What was it called? Like, what are you really? In the inquiries that lead to awakening, or something like that. And she said, like, she was surprised that she was like, do you write this out and like plan it and script it? And I was like, no, I just talk about it. And she was like surprised by that. What's also quite surprising is that, you know, I'm renowned as a quiet person that doesn't talk. You know, I'm social enough, but there are some areas in life where it switches 180. Like when I'm teaching exercise classes and such, obviously I'll adopt a role, and you know, it's in a way it's like out of character. You're putting on a new character to engage and motivate people. But within our extended family, my wife's dad's known as the quiet man because he just doesn't talk, and I'm the quiet man 2.0 because I don't, you know, I don't feel motivated to overly talk about stuff. I'm just quiet and reserved. But when I start talking about this, it's not, this just shows you it's not the character. I just keep talking, and it's easy because it's like it's not even coming from me, it's coming through me. It's just experience talking about itself. So it's a really strange feeling in that, you know, it just all comes from nothing. The words, like, I can get into a flow state with it where the words, what's more clear is the sensation here, the sensation here, the sensation here. It just like happens on its own. It's so enjoyable that I'm not like having this internal struggle about what do I say and such. It just all happens on its own. It's very freeing. But if I was talking about something objective that had defined qualities, there was a consensus, there was an agreement between everyone that, you know, this is the thing that these are the words that describe this, this is how to describe this, I couldn't do this because I'd have to really think about what I'm saying, and I'd have to make sure that I'm saying the correct things so that other people could understand it intellectually. But this isn't like that, because you can't talk about this. It's more that the language is so vague, but it points, it directs towards something. I'm telling you this story because I was meant to answer a comment in this video, and that's us 15 minutes in. So let's go. Okay, Bees is my honey says, your experience with practical approaches would be absolutely welcome. I seem to sometimes get stuck in the gap between emotion and mind and feel a heavy pull to do something in that gap. Good. Especially when an emotional trigger comes up when I'm around other people in the moment. I feel frozen in place. I don't know how to be or what it even means to be in that moment. Yeah, that's really good. Like you know, the gap is, there's an awareness of the gap, and there's a movement. So I guess you could say, like, there's a you're in that gap, and then you're recognizing that there's a mind's concern about what do I do with that, which is coming out of the gap, so to speak. So that's really clear. You're intuitively recognizing this, and what I'm getting from your comment is that you know what to do, is that just remain in the gap. From that gap, so to speak, the action will come. It will come spontaneously. You see, in the gap, right? Even the thought comes from that seems to take you out of it. That says that I have to do this. It appears spontaneously from the gap. So maybe even that thought might change. Although we're looking to change thought, but that thought might change to something more spontaneous and intuitive, that's informed by, so to speak, this understanding, this awake clarity. So Norfolk Yeti asked described something similar, and I answered that in the other video, but I'm not sure if I actually answered maybe I did, doesn't matter. But so we're talking about how the self, so we're at the level of clarity where it's clear that the self is coming and going, so it's not always here anymore. So there's been an awakening, so to speak. Awakeness has come clearly into life, and then but that coming and going of the self still has some real momentum at times, and it's dependent on conditions. It's depending on the environment interacting with itself through this apparent you that's here, and for me, and I'm sure everyone else is similar, that it rears its head, it comes on with a felt reality when we're relating to other people, because there's not as much of an inclination to relate to your environment, like a tree, with the same felt identity as it is to relate to another person. Because there's an energetic thing there that can be felt that transcends separation, but there's also the natural movement to want to fortify and or you maybe defend or insist on this identity through this relational thing with other people. They can be felt. So all the emotional conditioning can come up as well, because there's somehow like an insistence that I have to control other people's perception of this self, and we do that because integrating socially, being socially accepted is a huge thing, and it actually comes down to our survival instinct. Because if we're socially rejected by everyone in our society, we'll die. we'll go crazy or die or something like that. I remember hearing a story about maybe it's a tribe or a culture, a small culture, who, when someone does something within this culture that is illegal according to their set of laws, what they'll exile them from the tribe, and what happens is they don't even bother to continue living when they're exiled. There's no violence involved. It's not like an execution, but it's an execution by exile. And because they know that the gravity of being rejected by their community, they will go and get rid of themselves physically because of that. So it just shows that it's how deeply tied this is to our instinct to survive, is how other people perceive me. It comes back to even like reproduction and sorry, my English is really not good recently. Even coming back to having access to resources, emotional resources, physical resources, all of that comes back down to how other people perceive me. So of course there's a huge amount of identity wrapped up in that, because we're a lot of the actions and a lot of this self function is designed to, or has designed itself around trying to control other people's perceptions of me. Because if I can do that, and if I can change their perception of me, who and what I am, then the benefits of that are very great. The risks of the opposite are grave. So it's powerful. So that's just to illustrate how when we're around other people, it brings online, it revs up this selfing function. And that's the thing about the limitations now of living this in a monastic setting, and how integrating this awakening into the society here, like we're living here, it's much harder, or it requires a deeper clarity, a deeper level of integration that you wouldn't be able to achieve in a monastic setting, probably, because everyone around you is enlightened, and you're just doing enlightened things and whatnot. I believe like a lot of the monastic people would probably agree with that. I'm talking about, I know there are different monastic settings. I'm talking about like the Buddhist one, where you see them like doing chores and stuff like that and meditating all day. I could be misappropriating this, sorry, I don't know a huge amount about it, but I have seen a lot of like monastic living documentaries. But I know there are monastic settings that are highly social, and I suppose would mirror this environment, where there is a lot of social dysfunction inherent in that you're dealing with. Kind of going off topic now, but yeah, so integrating this into this, especially in like certain parts of the world, like I would say it's like here, where there is a deep trauma in the air. Northern Ireland, I don't know if anyone knows that there was a war not that long ago, and it was there's still the energetic shadow of that you can feel, and you can see that trauma in people. So living this awake life, so to speak, is accepting all of that, accepting everyone for what they are, without trying to insist that it change, without having a strong aversion to it, without the judgment in that way. And that means yourself as well, accepting what you are here as it is, no matter what, all the time, not trying to change it. This is a huge point, by the way, accepting yourself for what you are. So like say you have an awakening, you have this clarity, this deep connection, and then you've got the meing and being type thing. Comes and goes, the self comes back online and then dissipates. There might be like a reaction to the self coming back online and these kind of identified thoughts. By taking a position on it and identifying with them and reacting with other thoughts, because like I've lost my awakeness, I've lost my awakening. I think everyone goes through this a bit. But accepting that for what it is, you're not in control of it. The thoughts, the identity is co-arising with interconnected, dependently originated conditions that are all appearing on their own. So there's no you that's in control of that. So there's this big release of control into the clear awakeness of what is. But then there's a kind of trying to regain control of it at times by reacting to my apparently unspiritual behaviour and then judging myself based on me. It's all based on me to say I am no longer awake, or I was no longer awake in that moment, which is not true, because this doesn't exclude anything. I'm gonna have to pause here. I really need to go to the toilet, but I'll be back in a minute. Okay, we're back. So having that awareness of that sense of self coming and going in experience kind of opens you up out into what's more complete than that, what's more free than that you are. You can feel the difference. It's a felt, energetic recognition. Like I always talk about, the signature of self can be felt in experience. So then you orient yourself back into, or forwards more closely into, there's no direction to it, but you orient yourself to that which you are, that is just here when the self isn't there, and then when the self comes and goes in experience. And I guess you could say that's the path out of the reality of the self. So it's being attentive, bringing that which you've realised into experience, or opening up to that as much as possible. There comes a point in this awakening thing, like, you know, before awakening, there's like, it's a subject that you're very interested in because you can feel it at some level, but you might get interested in it for a while and then give up for like a few years and then come back, and it's like some kind of hobby or some kind of interest you're picking up. After awakening, it's not like that anymore, because you've realised something directly about life and yourself, so then it's always here on some level. It's like in that way you can't ignore it anymore. It's always here. So then when this selfing thing happens, it's more uncomfortable, because you know, it's like, that's not my experience of life. It's not real. I know that now, and it feels uncomfortable. And then you watch yourself do ridiculous things when there's a triggering that happens, and it's like, it's not even you. It's not even you. That you that you were identified with before doesn't feel real in the same way anymore. It doesn't feel like what you are. So and you know that in experience, you know it, and you know how to drop into it when the conditions are right, Like, for me it was when I was on my own, when there weren't any distractions, I'd connect with it, and I would just drop into it. And then in other conditions, the self came back online. It was like a reaction to the environment. It was like the mind reacting to things, and there's a feeling in it. There's like this emotional conditioning. You feel it in other people. Someone else has this vibe about them, this energy, and then they direct it at you, and you feel it automatically. And then the mind jumps in to try and figure that out, blame it on something on them, figure out what you're going to do about this situation. Like what I think that person thinks about me based on their behaviour. I need to adopt a behaviour that's going to make what I think they think seem different from my point of view. It's insane. Trying to get inside other people's experience, trying to figure out what do they think of it. You'll never know that. You can't control that either. You can't control it. All you can get closer to is your own experience. Other people appear in that, but a huge amount of this suffering, this discordant way of living, comes about when we try and interpret what other people are thinking about me as an identity. And does my thoughts and ideas about what I am as an identity match up with theirs? But really it's like more important what they think. It's more important what they think, but it's always what you think they think. It's never accurate, of course. It's an interpretation. How I relate to that person's view of me, and what can I do to control that? That's insanity. Other people's views of who you are, you have no control over whatsoever. It's such a relief to let go of that illusion and just let other people be as they are. They can think and feel what they like. There's nothing I can do about that. So it's very much an inside job. But we become more and more attentive, more and more present to ourselves at the most deep level. And on the surface of that, seemingly these functions and thought come and go, and they're relational. Although you can't predict and control this apparent outside world with other people, you can get more closely in touch with what's happening inside yourself and in this internal world. And you know, like I described before, it almost possesses you. You before you know it, you're looking back in retrospect and thinking, why did I act like that? Why was I triggered? Why did I go back into the illusion and identified with this? As we get closer and closer to this now, almost you could say like before the triggering happens, there's a gap there. There's a gap there where there's like a delay between the identified function coming on, that subject-object informing our behaviour based on this conditioning and based on this emotional holding we've got going on within ourselves. There's a gap there. And then for me it was like, instead of being run by it, it was almost like then I had the decision, almost, this is not true, but I had the decision whether to identify or not. And sometimes I would be like, I'm just going to choose to identify, and I made that choice and then went into the identification. And other times there was kind of like an emotional uncomfortableness, a strong emotional uncomfortableness, and it kind of seemed like I was holding back the behaviour, the identified function. But really I was bringing it into clarity and feeling what was driving it, and this really yucky, uncomfortable emotional uprising coming up. That when I engaged in the behaviour, that was there to stop me feeling that by trying to control this. But when I didn't, I was just stuck in the feeling. I think that's what the commentator is describing here. There's this feeling of this emotional yuckiness, this drive to move into action, to move into a thought narrative about this, and from that point of view of the subject. There's that drive, and sometimes it feels like you're fighting it, but if you just stay there and consciously go to the emotion, go to that yucky feeling, that tight, tense feeling, that for me it was yucky, it was like from the gut up, it was like go to that and just allow that to be here with as much intensity as it likes. Even try and make it more intense by getting closer to it, make it more clear, make it more felt, orient right towards that. And you might just go, nah, like choose to engage in the thought function and go back into the thing, and then you'll notice you'll notice you don't really feel that in the same way anymore. It's like you can see why the function's here and how it's obscuring and directing attention away and seeming to manage this emotion. Because when you go, no, I'm just going to do it, and then choose to identify, it seems to remedy the emotional feeling. It seems to, but it doesn't. It doesn't. It's kind of like whilst you're engaging in that reactive behaviour, it seems to mask it. That's all it does. And then when you stop, or when it's over, it's still there. It's still there. That reaction doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to happen. It's happening due to conditions interacting with each other without a self in it. It's happening automatically. It's happening on its own. It's like if you heard the phrase NPC, it's like that. The self is an NPC, non-playable character. You're not playing it. It's playing itself. And it feels like you're not in control. The whole thing's like a control thing, a loss of control. So we let go of the control and just feel. Or we empower ourselves with the decision, with the intention to feel. And then when we feel, we notice that it's not that bad. It's not that bad. The more you feel, the less that repression, that holding is just there when the triggering happens. And the more it just moves, it's kind of like it moves through the body. What it feels like is it gets stuck in the body when we contract and tighten in with this identified thought function, and it sticks. We hold it and carry it about with us. When we stay in that gap and allow it to release, allow it to move, what happens is it moves through you. The energetics move through your body in a very natural way. And that starts to become quite enjoyable. So then, don't you probably won't believe, some of you probably won't believe me, but practice this and see. Even the most uncomfortable emotions, the most uncomfortable energetic uprisings and emotion, that sensation, that visceral thing, it starts to become enjoyable in a way. So then there's an orientation towards that. So that whenever this triggering happens in our life, whenever this self rears its head, there's an opportunity to get to that feeling. The feeling becomes like yummy, like delicious. like a night, you're exploring the flavours of this energetic sensation of emotion, and that becomes a new hobby. So whenever the triggering happens, you're like, yes, there's a chance to feel, see what this one's like. What does that feel like? And the body starts to enjoy these movements, strangely enough. For me, I felt them all coming down from my gut, but then it went up my spine and over the top of my head. You know when you get an adrenaline rush, you feel this tingliness going over the back of your skull. Oh, actually I just noticed that's like classic Kundalini. That's a classic Kundalini thing. No, because I never thought I experienced a whole load of Kundalini, but no, actually, when I think about it, it moves up and out, and it releases. It moves and releases, moves and releases, and that sensation becomes something we start to welcome and turn towards, rather than move away into this internal world to control it, to get out of the body. I want to get out of my body into this mind that's not in the body. You start, when you see that function happening, when you see that happening, this is over. It'll just be a matter of time when you see the function, because that's the whole thing. When you don't need that anymore to avert from this emotion, to control how you feel, then you feel all of life. And when you feel all of life, that's liberation. Without aversion, without a perspective or point of view imposed upon it, from this subjective position in this internal world. So then it very much becomes all about feeling, all about sensation. And it's all here, it's all present, it's all in immediacy right now. And it gets more and more simple. And what stops happening is that identified thought function, that reinforcement of an internal world with a subject called me at the centre of it, relating to experiences I do like, experiences I don't like, trying to control them, desiring some and an aversion to others. Anyway, that'll do for now, and I'll talk to you next time.